The U.S. men's national team is about an hour away from their second friendly in this four-friendly window, the second to last window ahead of the 2022 World Cup. We just came off of a game where the U.S. absolutely mauled Morocco, and now we're planning to do the exact same thing against Uruguay. Today is a special occasion because for the first time ever, I'm doing a pregame show with Jake from, I'm thinking FIFA America in my head, but we've done a rebrand. It's called Soccer. Jake, thank you for joining me.
We have. Thank you for having me.
So the U.S. just put out the lineup. It looks like it was everybody we were expecting from the report the other day, except Anthony Robinson's not going to be able to go. It's going to be Joe Scally in his place. Let's start out with the lineup. Any surprises there for you? What are you expecting from this lineup today?
Yeah, not necessarily surprised because we did know about the lineup before this game started, or yesterday. We kind of know what to expect. But yeah, Joe Scally is going to be in this lineup for a sick Anthony Robinson. I think for me, it's seeing Aaron Long again, and then potentially not having Brendan Aronson available, or he is available, but he's not in the starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm watching the broadcast, Sam, and it looks like I'm like a blank screen on YouTube, but I can see me in the
Are you looking like a blank screen, or is the whole thing looking like a blank screen?
Just me.
Yeah. Are you on Wi-Fi? You're looking really pixelated. You look like one of the ghosts from Star Wars.
Give me 1 second.
All right, well, while Jake gets that together, let me tell you about the lineup if you're not aware, and I'm doing this off of memory, so here we go. Let's see. It is going to be Shawn Johnson in goal. The back line is going to be DeAndre Yedlin. It's going to be Walker Zimmerman, Aaron Long, which is another kind of controversial choice, as well as Joe Scally, who's kind of the surprise at left back. We're going to have a midfield three of Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, and Yunus Musa, the return of the vaunted MMA midfield. The first time we've seen Weston McKennie start for a long time since his injury, so that's something to watch there. He's expected to only go 45 minutes. And then the front three is going to be the same front three that we saw a few days ago against Morocco. It is going to be Christian Pulisic, Jesus Ferreira, and Tim Weah. I think the big surprise is the first one. I think the one that I'm really surprised about is seeing Shawn Johnson in goal. Now, from what I understand, I didn't see the official lineup release, but I saw reporters saying that Matt Turner didn't even dress for this game. So I don't know what's going on there. If maybe there's something happening that we're not aware of, or you just want to give just give Matt Turner a rest and see Shawn Johnson get a run out. I was pretty surprised in the press conferences that Greg Berhalter keeps alluding to the goalkeeper battle still being kind of up in the air for everybody, and that Shawn Johnson had just as much opportunity as anybody else. What are your thoughts on Shawn Johnson getting this start and where he kind of fits in this hierarchy of goalkeepers that seems to be ever expanding from whenever we thought it was just Matt Turner and Zach Steffen to now we've got Ethan and Shawn Johnson in the mix as well?
Yeah, I mean, you asked me about the surprises before I turned into a ghost, and I do apologize for that. My Ethernet cord popped out, and my wife was on a FaceTime chat with my sister-in-law, so the Wi-Fi was being taken up. But anyways, Shawn Johnson is the one surprise that I would say I genuinely can't figure out why he's in the starting lineup. I can even make a case for someone like Aaron Long because maybe Greg sees him as a viable piece to come into the World Cup roster. He was a large part of the leadership piece before he had an Achilles injury, and he was on the roster barring any injuries for this June camp. So I can kind of make a case as Greg to play Aaron Long. Shawn Johnson, in the meantime, was not on this June camp roster when it first came out, and only when Zach Steffen had to take leave for a different issue was he placed on this roster. So in my mind, I would have expected Ethan Horvath to be higher up the depth chart than Shawn Johnson, but maybe he's giving Shawn Johnson one last chance to make a case. Maybe this is a good opportunity where you're going to face a lot of shots from a good Uruguay team. That's about as good as I can get. Everywhere else on the field, the other 10 positions, I can make a case for and can understand the changes or keeping a player on the pitch that played against Morocco. Shawn Johnson is the one that I just don't necessarily understand. And I guess maybe that means that Greg doesn't like this doesn't necessarily mean that Greg places Shawn Johnson over Ethan Horvath. Maybe we see Horvath in the two Nations League games and gets some minutes there.
Yeah,
What do you
and
think?
once again, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and we might find out after the game that that Turner has some type of thing going on that's keeping him from playing or something like that. So it does seem unusual to me. It seems like everywhere else on the roster, it's geared towards players that he's hoping to rely upon in the World Cup, and really, like he said before the friendlies, that this was going to be fine tuning, and it was really going to be a big run out for the first team players. So I'm surprised that we're not going to see Turner with this back line. If Walker Zimmerman and Antony or whoever's expected to be get a lot of minutes during the World Cup, you just get even more time with those players. So it is a big surprise for me. That being said, Greg S. spoke highly of Shawn Johnson in some of the press interviews. So that is there as well. But it does seem to conflict with having Aaron Long in the lineup once again. If you're giving different goalkeepers a run out to kind of see what they can do, why aren't you giving different center backs a run out to see what they can do? Is that seems to not really be consistent as a way of thinking. So I'm curious about that. I'm wondering why not Cameron Carter-Vickers or Eric Palmer-Brown, though I can understand that one game for a center back or one game for any player is not enough to truly evaluate them. And if you really want to see if Aaron Long could potentially be your second starter or your third center back going into a World Cup, I mean, this is a tremendous way to test him out going up against a Uruguay squad with just some absolutely tremendous attackers. So I get that, but it would mean the same thing for Matt Turner, unless Turner's already has his name written in pen. What were your thoughts on the center back choices?
I hope Matt Turner has his name written in blood at this point. That's the next step above a pen. For me, the case that I will make for Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman being the starting pair again in this match is, I think, and we'll see what happens in the second half. I think what is happening in these two matches is Greg wanted two center backs that have some chemistry together, that have some run of form with the U.S. men's national team, and then putting one of the people that are kind of trying out for that position in the second half in 45 minutes so that the person that they're next to, the person that they're pairing with, is kind of up to speed with the match already. So we saw that in the second half of the Morocco game. Cameron Carter-Vickers came in for Walker Zimmerman, and that meant that he was paired with a player, Aaron Long, that was kind of already up to speed with the match, that was already kind of in the moment for the game. Jimmy Conrad said he had on good authority a few days ago that EPB would be getting at least 45 minutes in this match. So I kind of assume it's going to be similar, that EPB will come in for one of either Aaron Long or Walker Zimmerman and be able to get a true tryout next to whoever Greg thinks is in that starting center back position. But I also want to hear what you think about the Shawn Johnson thing. Does this mean he's kind of jumped over Ethan Horvath in the depth chart, or is this we're just reading into Greg allowing all of his keepers to get playing time in this June camp?
I'm not sure. That's the big question mark. I got to assume that it means that he's jumped over him in his depth chart. And actually, whenever I was putting together my latest World Cup depth chart, I was kind of considering what you would want in a third goalkeeper. And it seems to me that your third goalkeeper should be somebody older with a lot of experience. That's generally how it works. Somebody that's a good locker room guy, something like that. And that fits a lot more in line with Shawn Johnson, who I think is 32, I believe, than Horvath, who's a little bit younger. So that makes sense to me. And also, Shawn Johnson is getting regular minutes as opposed to Horvath, who only had a few starts this season, didn't get too many opportunities to play. So it is a bit weird, especially as one commenter pointed out that Shawn Johnson wasn't even on this roster he came in because of an injury. So to jump up that high is a bit strange. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is. Maybe we'll get a little bit more light shed on that in the post-game press conference whenever Greg meets with the reporters as to why Shawn Johnson got the run out. Another player that I'm curious to talk about, get your thoughts on, is we got a change at both fullbacks, but specifically DeAndre Yedlin is coming in as the right back for Reggie Cannon. Now, last game, Reggie Cannon played a pretty big role in the team as he was this kind of a swing fullback who, in the attack, was playing as a right center back, and then in defense was kind of swinging out as a traditional right back. With DeAndre Yedlin in the game, it's very unlikely that we see that same role. It's much more likely that we'll see a lot more of what we saw in World Cup qualifying, where whenever we had the ball, we played more of a, let's call it a 2-3-2-3 formation or a 2-3-5. I saw somebody else call it the WM, which I really like that. But however, whatever nomenclature you want to use, it's going to be more like that. So I'm curious your thoughts on having DeAndre Yedlin in this role, this different look. Do you think that we're going to see potentially Tyler Adams dropping back and forming a back three and kind of seeing that shape that we saw last game? How do you think that we approach this game tactically with DeAndre Yedlin in the game as opposed to Reggie Cannon?
Yeah, I mean, if we play something that resembles a three in the back when we have possession, that's kind of the only way that I can see this working, because DeAndre Yedlin, for a lot of his career, has been more of a marauding fullback, although with age and time, he's kind of matured into less of a speedster and more of a, I don't know, a technical fullback. Then on the left, you have Joe Scally, who is a very versatile player, but hasn't necessarily featured in any center back positions. So we can either go at this where we need to play a three in the back, like we did against Morocco, and you're right. I think Tyler Adams drops in between the center backs, and that's how we're able to keep possession. That also kind of matches to how Joe Scally and DeAndre Yedlin play in their club teams, really pushing forward and being more wing backs than they are fullbacks. So that's a way that we could kind of emulate the same formation in possession that we played against Morocco while still playing with the players that we have available. I think the other thing that you might see is really more of just a full-on attack that we've sometimes played against CONCACAF opponents, where both fullbacks are pushing up into the attacking third without there being necessarily a third center back. It might mean that Tyler Adams needs to play a bit more reserved and a bit more restricted to protect that back line. But yeah, you're right. DeAndre Yedlin and Joe Scally are not the personnel that Reggie Cannon is. And that's not to say that they're not the same talent or the same level. It's more just that Reggie Cannon has a very specific set of skills that allowed us to play what I thought was a pretty interesting and a pretty cool wrinkle in the USMNT's game against Morocco. So I'm weirdly excited to see what we come up with against Uruguay and how we'll play, because this personnel that we have on the pitch now is just not going to allow us to play the same way that we did against Morocco.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that tactical wrinkle because I know that you're a big tactics guy. I noticed throughout World Cup qualifying, whenever we were playing that shape that was more of a 2-3-5, where we had the two center backs and then that line of three midfielders in front of them, that often whenever our, let's call them pocket tens, like Christian Pulisic, would drop into the midfield to receive the ball, there was often not a lot of space for him to operate. Often he would get the ball, didn't have many options in front of him, and our build-up really sputtered in that way. Against Morocco, whenever there was only two midfielders in that midfield and three center backs, whenever Christian or Brendan Aronson would drop in, it seemed like they had a lot more space and a lot more options, whether they wanted to hit that cross to Christian Pulisic dropping in, hitting that cross over to Reggie Cannon to switch play, or turning, just had a lot more space and options in front of them. Do you think that was more of a factor of just how Morocco was setting up tactically and the opponent, or is this just indicative of that shape of having one less guy in that midfield?
I thought it was kind of the perfect storm of it was the personnel that we had available, the wrinkle that we wanted to implement in our tactics, and it was against a team where their best player was their right back, Achraf Hakimi. And the way that we were playing against Morocco, to be able to kind of shift the backline left one, which means Anthony Robinson was going up the left side, he kind of occupied the space where Ashraf Hakimi needed to defend. And that allowed Pulisic to have a lot of freedom roaming around the pitch. So, yeah, I just think it was kind of a perfect storm where we probably, no matter the opponent, needed to try some different things before we got to the World Cup. And at the same time, it was kind of like the perfect way to really restrict Morocco's play going forward, because Ashraf Hakimi needed to really focus and have a defensive responsibility on Jedi and Christian Pulisic. The thing is, if we play that way against Uruguay, and I'm not saying we shift the line left or whatever, if we push our fullbacks up, if we try to play with those fullbacks in the attacking third, Uruguay's strength is in their really fast and deadly counterattacks. So I worry a bit if we're going to kind of try to play the same way with different personnel. Our weakness in that tactic is going to be defending in transition in the wide areas, and that's something that Uruguay does really, really well.
Yeah, and I think as you get to the World Cup, I mean, there's going to be a lot more very good attackers, and throughout World Cup qualifying, this has been a defense of bend but not break. We do give up opportunities, but they tend to be low percentage opportunities. However, if you're giving up low percentage opportunities to class opponents, they're going to turn those into goals if you give them enough of them. It's not going to be like, shoot, I mean, Mexico, when we played them in Azteca, was just a shooting gallery. And even in the last game, it was a shooting gallery as well. They took a lot of hopeful shots, weren't able to put too many of them on frame. But we'll see what a more class side like Uruguay can do. I'm seeing the comment sections, people are saying that Uruguay didn't put out a super strong lineup. I haven't seen the lineup, but we'll see what that looks like. I mean, with the players that they have available to them, I think any lineup that they put out is going to be pretty strong. I mean, comparatively speaking. Another tactical thing that I wanted to get into with you. I really liked the wrinkle that we saw with Reggie Cannon because of what it showed, just offering these different shapes. I remember whenever the U.S. is playing Mexico, oftentimes we would see Edson Alvarez kind of mimic that. He would sometimes be in the midfield. He would sometimes drop in as a third center back, and kind of the different things that could create. I'm curious to see how Greg Berhalter approaches this now. Are we going to see somebody like Tyler Adams dropping into that back three to create that shape throughout the game? And or are we going to see potentially Reggie Cannon coming in at some point in the game, which also is going to allow somebody like Brendan Aronson or another dynamic player to come in and join in that midfield and offer a different look? I'm really excited about those things moving forward. Do you see this kind of potential versatility and tactics that we just didn't see really throughout World Cup qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And you mentioned Brendan Aronson. I want to say as well, we wouldn't have been able to play the way that we played against Morocco if we didn't have Brendan Aronson in the midfield, because as the defense shifted left and Anthony Robbins started to take up spaces on the left side, Brendan Aronson, who was in defense playing in the middle of the pitch as an 8, was able to shift right and play more of a right midfielder, right winger to really pair up with Timothy Weah. So that to me is just awesome, that we as a team have players that can come in and change the way and change the tactic that we're going to play, because it makes us really difficult to prepare for. If you're England or Iran or now Wales that we have in the World Cup group, shout out to Wales today for qualifying. It's going to be really difficult. Do you prepare for us playing a 4-3-3? Do you prepare for us playing a WM formation with Reggie Cannon and Brendan Aronson? Do you prepare for us playing an MMA midfield with Timothy Weah, Jesus Ferreira, and Christian Pulisic up top? There's all these different ways that we can play. And I'm not saying like we're over and above these teams on talent, but the more things that you can give other teams to think about and worry about, the better it will do for you as you go into those matches. I
Well
am
said,
looking
man.
at appreciate that. I am looking at the Uruguay lineup right now. I had to warn people on our preview of it on the It's Called Soccer channel that it was very likely that Edinson Cavani was going to sit this match, or at least not start, and Darwin Nunez, who, if you guys don't know, is a huge prospect for Benfica. He's being chased by Manchester United and all these Champions League teams. Not Manchester United is not a Champions League team. But yeah,
Super League teams.
yes. Valverde, Torreira, Pellistri, all of these players are on the bench for Uruguay tonight. So it will still be a really good test, but probably not Uruguay's best 11 on this pitch to start with.
All right, well, let's move. We're talking a lot about the right back, and a lot of people want to talk about the left back who's coming in for this game. It's going to be Joe Scally. I see Deutscher Yank has commented in saying, happy Scally is starting. This will be a big test for him on the left, considering the competition, and Scally's preferred position is on the right. And I saw Manuel Oliveira's commented about Scally, a few people commenting about Scally. In the last game with Scally, we saw a player making his U.S. men's national team debut, a player coming in the second half of a game whenever things were already kind of established and choppy, and there was already a few substitutions coming in. And, oh, by the way, he also happened to be playing up against one of the best right backs in the world who was kind of running down his throat over and over again. So what were your thoughts on kind of Scally's first game with the national team and what you expect to see from him tonight, what you hope to see from him tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good test. It wasn't perfect from him play-wise, but that's the reason why we have these preparation matches. That's the reason why we have these exhibitions. And for Joe Scally, someone that was kind of called out for not really understanding the style and the tactics right away to Greg's genius. Joe Scally kind of got out of the team from the World Cup qualifying because he wasn't able to come in and pick it up quick enough. So now is the time. We have 5 more matches before the World Cup starts. Joe Scally is, again, a very versatile player, is probably our second or third right and left back on the depth chart. So you need to get him time. You need to get him experience now. And if that means, having to go up against one of the best right backs in the world and getting skinned and having a poor penalty called on you, it was not a penalty. But at the same time, he didn't play perfect. It was a great experience, great learning experience for him. And I'm happy to see him starting tonight, even though that means Jedi might be out with an illness.
Yeah, it's interesting in that he gets the nod in the last game, and then Jedi goes down and he gets the nod once again. Whenever we have George Bello in camp, who has gotten some minutes during World Cup qualifying, so it's looking like, as of right now, Joe Scally's kind of leapfrogged him in that depth chart, though I am very intrigued by the idea of seeing this Reggie Cannon formation at right back with Serginho Dest pushed high as a left back in the attack. I think that could be a very exciting thing if Anthony Robinson needs a spell or anything like that. It's an interesting look that the U.S. can throw out. But if that's not the situation, it would be wonderful to have Scally step up in this game and have a good performance. And like you said, I'm not too worried about how he played in the last game. I think that especially young players getting their debut deserve a couple of games to establish themselves and kind of get their feet under the ground. I do think that we tend to we do tend to get a little overzealous in our player ratings.
Absolutely.
Especially whenever it's somebody's debut or first time with the team.
Good and bad, I will say.
Yeah.
Also.
We got a donation, $4.99 from David. He says, today is going to be a big test for Greg Berhalter. I still have doubts on him. What do you think? What's Reyna update? Let's do the last one first. I don't know if we have a Reyna update. I mean, he's not going to be in this camp. He's expected to start the season well for Borussia Dortmund. There's been clips of him training with Borussia Dortmund, so I'm expecting that to be the next time we see him. I don't know if you have any other news on that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm not an insider yet.
Yeah, so the second part is on Greg Berhalter. I mean, of course, he faced a ton of criticism throughout World Cup qualifying. I think the overall tone on Greg Berhalter, I think at least what I'm seeing on Twitter and on other places, is people have largely kind of brought the DEFCON level down a bit. It seems like the heat is off of him. I've seen a lot of the Twitter accounts that were Berhalter out to have quietly removed that from their name without a lot of hullabaloo, and people have moved on to other hills to die on. So it seems like the fan base, while not supporting Greg, or full-throated, I guess full-throated support of Greg, have largely kind of come to accept and slowly move away from the this guy's the worst person in the world. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not the worst person in the world. And the more I dig into it, the more I'm trying to remove, how do I say this? I think I can see the benefit of a coach that is very good at building an environment and less tactically sound. And throughout the World Cup qualifying, I think my biggest gripe with him was that he didn't seem to be learning from his mistakes. I think about the game in Panama and then the subsequent matches. It didn't really seem that he understood the gravity of the mistakes that he was making. But over the last few matches, the World Cup qualifying games, and then against Morocco, he started to show like little slivers. And even the tactical wrinkle with Reggie Cannon and how we were able to move into that kind of 3-2-2-3 formation, really deny Ashraf Hakimi space. Like those are the things that I think Greg can really work on. And as I'm seeing these things play out for the US men's national team, I was never really at DEF CON level. There was maybe one moment in World Cup qualifying where I was there. But slowly but surely, I think where I'm at right now is he is going to be the coach for the US men's national team going to the World Cup, basically no matter what happens over the next 5 months. I think we all have to accept that. So I'm trying to see the good. I'm trying to see the benefit of this. I'm trying to see the optimistic nature that our team has going into these camps. You've heard many, many times that this team really loves being together. And as much as that is about the players having a good personality and a good environment, that also starts with the leader, which is the manager. So I do have doubts still that he is the right tactical person. I do have doubts still that he can manage in really pressure-packed games to make the right substitutions and the right changes. But at the same time, I think now, after dozens of games with the same core group and having a lot of our young players healthy for a good amount of time now together, you can start to see some benefit of a manager that has really good youth man management and youth development skills. The jury's still out on him in terms of tactics.
Yeah,
Is that
I
where
think
you're
that's
at? Like, how do you feel?
I have a weird opinion on this. First of all, let me shout out Preston T. Croshaw, who donated $2 and says it's my favorite USM&T combo. Yes, go USA. So just want to knock that out. I think I have a thought experiment very often about like what is the role of a manager on a soccer team, and sometimes specifically what is the role of a national team manager for a soccer team, and how important are tactics versus how important is the quality of the players that you have available, and other things, the intangibles, keeping a strong locker room. I think whenever I see teams that really fail or teams that really underperform, it tends to be what's happening off the field that causes them to underperform as opposed to the tactics. I look around at other places in world soccer with criticisms of managers. I know Pep Guardiola gets criticized often for over tacticizing sometimes, for overthinking things. I've seen, Carlo Ancelotti was recently criticized for not having enough tactics, just to relying on his superstar players, and you saw how that turned out for him. Same thing with Zidane for a number of years. He was criticized for not being the most tactically sound, but being able to manage that incredible locker room of players that he had at Real Madrid. So I don't know. I sometimes think that we overrate tactics as like this super important thing. I think that we underrate the quality of the players on the field and sort of the magic that happens whenever a strong group of players becomes a strong unit and just kind of things happen on the field for you. So that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of underrate that element of tactical stuff anyway, even though I'm a huge fan of it and I study it a lot and I love to break it down and I love it. I do kind of question if that's the most important thing, if that's the thing that gets the most attention versus some of these other things that are important. Like I mean, one thing with John Herdman, who we all kind of look at as like the best manager in CONCACAF right now, like his tactics are, while they're pretty set in stone, they're fairly basic. You know, he's not reinventing the wheel out there. I mean, we all know what he's going to do. The thing that he has going for him that everybody says is that his players will run through a brick wall for him, and he's got them all believing that they're the frickin' Spartans, you know, defending in Thermopylae or wherever it was. That's the thing that he brings to the table that's turned this Canadian team from a good team to the team that finished first in CONCACAF. So I do value that man management side of things to a big degree.
Can I say one more thing on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you've reminded me of a few things. And also, Dan Kane, I am reading your comments. You don't have to spend money for us to read your comments. On the point of the players and Greg, the game of soccer, and especially in World Cup qualifying when there's so few games, there are wide swings in luck and variability.
Yeah.
If we had scored, Miles Robinson had a header free on goal against El Salvador in our first World Cup qualifying match. Weston McKennie had a free header that went wide in that El Salvador match. If we score any one of those, we start out with 3 points. If Weston McKennie doesn't get suspended for multiple infractions of team rules, he's playing against Canada at home where we tied 1-1. Gio Reyna was injured for most of qualifying. Pulisic was in and out of form. Like there are so
best
many
player,
factors.
Christian Pulisic, gets a chance in Azteca to win the game.
Yes,
and he can't put it away.
So
yeah, you're right.
That's not the coach's fault. Like, yes, you have to be fair and criticize the coach when he makes the wrong decisions and he makes poor. He lowers the chance of success for the team, and I think against Panama away he did that.
Absolutely,
but all the other times, like, there's so much luck involved that of things he can't control, that at least he has a good environment. The team is feeling good. The team likes to be together. I think we have to give him credit for that.
Ryan C says, with a $1.99 donation, I'd kill for Greg if he told me to go sicko mode. Ryan, I don't know about all that. I want to get into more of kind of breaking down what we saw last game and what we can expect moving forward. We have talked about the keeper. We have talked about the back line. It's time to move forward into the midfield line. And I think the big talking point from the midfield line was what we saw from Luca de la Torre in the last 20 minutes of the game. He came in and he played that sixth position much differently than we've seen from Tyler Adams throughout World Cup qualifying. He was combining, he was kind of shuttling, he was playing a much different role than we've seen either Kellen Acosta or Tyler Adams do that role, to the point where a lot of people are asking, can Luca de la Torre be the sixth for this national team moving forward? Can he surpass Tyler Adams? Would that give the U.S. a different look? I want to hear your thoughts on that whole discussion.
Sure. I think first and foremost, I need to say that Luca de la Torre will not surpass Tyler Adams as the number 6. What I think he can do, though, is give us, I'm just going to kind of go back to the same conversation, same points I'm making about having Brendan Aronson and Reggie Cannon in, where having them as personnel that are versatile and can play different positions allows you to play a different way. I think the same stands with Luca de la Torre. Luca de la Torre, when he's in, could play a more defensive midfielder position, but that also means we need to play a different way in the midfield. When Tyler Adams is in for us, he just sits in front of that back line. Everyone trusts that he is going to run and cover from end line to end line, from sideline to sideline. He's going to cover them, and they'll be safe with Tyler Adams on the field. With Luca de la Torre, he is just as dogged. He has just as much of an engine, but he's a bit better kind of turning and moving the ball into the attacking third. But he does kind of all those little defensive things a bit worse than Tyler Adams. So personally for me, I think what we can maybe make a case for Luca de la Torre is that he's moving into the Kellen Acosta range of being not just the backup 8 for Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie, but the backup 6 for Tyler Adams. But if he's in the game as a 6, we just need to change the way we play a little bit and give him a little bit more protection.
Yeah, I'm glad you said change the way we play.
Yeah.
I think he's a lot further away than people think. I think I think that whenever a lot of times whenever people look at or review games and evaluate player performances, they tend to look at strictly on the ball and strictly things like what did they complete passes, did they break lines, did they score goals, did they contribute to assists, stuff like that. And while that's all good and important, I tend to evaluate player performances based on the whole. How did they contribute to the overall scheme, the overall tactics? And I think whenever you do that, you can see the game in a different way. And I think that there's two very good examples of that on each side of the spectrum. The first one would be evaluating Reggie Cannon's game against Morocco. Whereas, I asked people on Twitter, what'd you think of Reggie Cannon's game? Because there's a lot of different opinions out there on it. And a lot of people came back and said he was average to poor. His defending, you almost didn't notice him. His defending was okay. His distribution was okay. Nothing special, anything like that. And that's all absolutely true and absolutely fair. However, his contribution to the overall whole of the game, his contribution to the tactical side of the game, was that he was able to perform this role where he was both a right back and a right center back, depending on game state, that allowed for someone like Brendan Aronson to play in that midfield and allowed for Tim Weah to be that right wing back in the attack and allowed for the U.S. to have a tactical wrinkle that I don't know of anybody else in the pool that could do that job. And for him to come in against a team as good as Morocco and to pull that off for the first time was, I thought, something very special. So if you're looking at somebody like Reggie Cannon in that Morocco game for what he did on the field, you would say he was okay. If you're looking at what he did tactically and contributed to the whole, he was you can't say enough about him. And I think the flip side of that would be someone like Cristiano Ronaldo for Manchester United. Now, I'll say that I haven't watched a ton of Man United and haven't seen a lot of their season, but the big thing that everybody says about Cristiano at Man United is that while he does score and contribute to the goals and everything, his inability to contribute on the defensive side of the game creates an overall net negative for Manchester United, and there's big question marks whether his goal scoring offsets what he does to the rest of the shape of the team whenever he's not on the ball. So that's sort of the opposite way to look at it, where if you look at Cristiano just simply on his goals, assists, offensive contributions, what he does on the ball, he's stellar. But if you look at him, what he contributes to the tactical team as a whole, there's some question marks there. I think whenever you look at Luca de la Torre, and specifically with this Tyler Adams question, whenever you look at what the U.S. men's national team is trying to do, especially against opposition that might be better than them, is that the main weapon for the national team right now is the press, is the relentlessness, is playing on the front foot and getting in opponents' faces, causing them to lose the ball in their defensive third, and striking from there. And whenever you think about it that way, that's sort of built around Tyler Adams and what he's able to do, the amount of ground he's able to cover, stopping counterattacks before they start, all those things. He brings that to the table. I think whenever you bring in Luca de la Torre, he's not able to contribute to that in the same way Tyler Adams is, not even close. So you lose what I think is the most important and strongest part of your team by bringing in Luca de la Torre, although he does add much more in the buildup, which I think is it's a big trade-off if you're looking to switch those players. That's sort of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, because the other thing you have to remember for Luca de la Torre, if he's playing in that position, you have other players like Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie who are also good at progressing the ball. So you don't necessarily need to depend on Luca de la Torre to do that. But if Luca is playing in front of Tyler Adams, then he becomes one of those progressors of the ball. So I just think it's a difference of where he plays and who else is on the pitch at the same time as him. But for me, he's definitely staked his claim as the backup for the midfield in general. And I'm loving that he's shown a versatility to play in a more defensive role, but for me, not necessarily required for him to be a part of the World Cup squad. One question I had for you, though, was because of how Brendan Aronson played and just the form that he's in, he's been sold to Leeds for 30 million pounds or dollars, maybe. He's not in the squad today, or he's not in the starting 11 today, because we're playing with an MMA midfield, and we also don't have Gio Reyna, we don't have Ricardo Pepi. How do we get our best attacking players on the pitch when everyone's healthy? And
I think
who
that
are
we
they?
I think that we don't. I think that it's a strength to our squad to have these options, to have different players that could come off the bench. I think whenever you go into a World Cup, I mean, you have 3 games in a short period of time. You shouldn't expect everybody to go 90 minutes in all 3 of those games. And there's always going to be injuries, there's always going to be knocks, there's always going to be yellow card accumulation, stuff like that. So to have very strong players that you can bring in off the bench to change a game and to be able to rotate, be able to kind of plan out for different opponents, I think is a very strong thing. That being said, I think that the strongest lineup we can put out right now is with Reggie Cannon in as that right center back and having Serginho Dest up on the left, putting Tim Weah out on the right, and having maybe Gio Reyna in that Brendan Aronson position.
You're already
I
there
think
after one match of Reggie Cannon. You're on the train.
I think that is a strong lineup, man. If you're building if you're doing the sexy lineup build, I think that's it right there. But I once again I do think that it's important to have players on the bench. I think one of the another question mark as we've kind of moved across the lineup as we've gone from keeper to defense to midfield. Let's move up to that front three, the strikers. Everybody knows I'm a big Jesus Ferreira fan, and I'm really pulling for him to kind of replicate his form that he's shown for FC Dallas for the national team. That being said, I'm not the kind of person that like I'm wishing ill upon Haji Wright in order for Jesus Ferreira to play better. I'm not. That's not where I'm at. I want to see a striker emerge. I thought both of those players played well in different ways in that last game, but neither I don't think contributed at the level of some of the other players around them. And the chorus for Tim Weah to start in the striker position is kind of growing louder. I know that's now Alexi Lawless's big thing is seeing Tim Weah in that striker position. I do want to say before I get to you though, YouTube user says, I thought for sure Jake was going there and Sam was talking to himself. You are kind of freezing a lot. So guys,
Okay.
we are doing a post-game show on Jake's channel, and we're going to try to have these kinks knocked out before that post-game show. So the ghost of Jake Landau is gonna return for that post-game show. But Jake, your thoughts on the two strikers last game and what you'd like to see moving forward at the striker position for the national team?
Sure. I'll try and get my Ethernet set up for when you come to mine. I thought Jesus Ferreira did okay. The thing with the strikers right now is that they need to stake their claim on the team, not necessarily be good each game. And it's not to say that Jesus Ferreira didn't have his opportunities either, because the first shot on goal was Jesus Ferreira trying to curl one past the keeper from Morocco that was saved. And then he had a chance at the end of the first half that Brendan Aronson slipped him in behind the defense. He had a really nice first touch to set himself up perfectly for the shot. But again, he tried to go for a low far corner curler. Maybe could have rounded the keeper, maybe could have shot it near post or chipped the keeper. It's like those are the moments where Ferreira on FC Dallas you think would just put those away. So it's really difficult when a player like that who's in form for his club team comes to the US, has opportunities, but doesn't necessarily put it away. Haji Wright obviously has the penalty to his name, scores on his debut. That's great for him and his confidence. But otherwise, again, I thought he was good, but he didn't wow me to the point where I'm calling for his name over Jesus Ferreira. I think at this point, they're the top two names for me if we were going to the World Cup tomorrow. Ricardo Pepi has really fallen off with his club team. And we're kind of like having the same conversation, right, as all throughout qualifying is we need a striker to really stake their claim on this position. And it's changed from Ricardo Pepi to Giassi Zardes to Jordan Pefok to Haji Wright. I'm sure I'm missing like 2 or 3 other people. So at this point, I'm just really hoping that one of them comes good. But I'm less worried than I was because they're not playing poorly anymore. They're at least like good enough to contribute to the success of the team. They're just not the one scoring the goals. And that's still a scary step that we need to fix before the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's sort of my viewpoint on it as well. Maybe not so much the best striker, but the best striker for the team at this point. And the team has looked good in the attack, and particularly in that last game. Whenever Ferrer was on the field in that first 45, the U.S. was able to get a ton of chances. When Haji Wright came on, to his credit, he was able to help in creating some other chances as well, albeit in a much different way. So I'm excited by both those players to see what they can do moving forward. David has a $4.99 donation. He says, "We haven't and won't find a number 9. Last time we had was with McBride. Sorry, Altador. I think Weah should carry the position. Saludos saludos de Miami." Sorry, switching from English to Spanish kind of threw my brain into a pretzel right there. I think that's being a little bit harsh to Altador. I think Altador got hurt in some big moments for the U.S. I really wish we could have seen him for, what was it, the 2014 World Cup. But he gets hurt early on, and we had to go without him. I think that was his big moment to shine. Really disappointed for Altidore there. He also had some good opportunities in 2010 in the World Cup. I think if Altidore gets like a famous World Cup goal, we look at him much differently than we do right now. That being said, it's a bummer that at 32 years old, Josie Altidore isn't able to contribute to this team or this group. So that is a bummer. But
what do
yeah,
you
the
think
striker
about Weah
position
in the position?
I don't like it. I think Tim Weah said over and over that he doesn't want to play that position. He prefers playing out wide. I think Tim Weah playing out wide has been phenomenal for the U.S. Throughout World Cup qualifying and once again for Morocco. I think that whenever he is in that striker position, he's not the greatest finisher in the world. So I think that that's an issue as well. And I think if you play him as the striker, you're going to kind of run into some of the same issues that people have with Jesus Ferreira, where he's dropping in a lot. So I think you lose a lot with Weah in that position, and you don't gain as much as I think people think that we will. But, then again, it's something that we haven't seen, so it's hard to evaluate. He doesn't play striker much for his club. If he is kind of in a striker-ish position, it's usually in a two-striker setup, and he's usually drifting all over the place on the field. So he's very rarely that number 9 target man that he would be. Maybe not a target man, but that number 9 up front for the U.S. Mm-hmm. I don't love it.
I'm with you.
Felix Santos donates $5. He says, "This team doesn't generate a lot of chances. Is the convo around number 9 misplaced? Perhaps we just need a number 9 that presses well and creates for others." Does the team not generate a lot of chances? I felt like the issue throughout World Cup qualifying and even in the game against Morocco was not that the team wasn't generating chances, it's that the team wasn't finishing off the chances that they were generating. You mentioned earlier the variance and all those opportunities that the U.S. had that they didn't put away. If you look at World Cup qualifying by the numbers, I think the U.S. led all of the CONCACAF and XG, but their actual goals were like third or something like that, whereas a team like Canada, I think, was like third in XG, but ended up with the most goals, or I don't remember how exactly it worked, but we were really undershooting our XG, which I think speaks to the lack of a finisher that we had in front of goal. I will say, to Felix's point, that I do think that the press will be and continue to be a major contributor in chance creation for the U.S. I think that we're so worried about like breaking down a low block and like having creative players on the field and creative passing and stuff like that. I don't think that will generate as many opportunities as a strong press will for this group. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, that's kind of like a new meta of soccer tactics, is basically like if you have a team that presses really well and generates offensive chances off of that press, then you don't necessarily need creative players. And that's kind of why the traditional number 10 has gone out of style, because if you just have a team of runners that can press really well, then you've just solutioned for a creative 10 that are really hard to get across the world. So yes, the number 9 being able to press is really important for the US team. But I'm with you. Like we had plenty of chances. And if you think like, not only did Christian Pulisic, our best player, miss that in the game against Mexico, but Jordan Pivak obviously has the famous miss in front of goal against Mexico as well. So if we have a 9 that is able to press and create those opportunities for the rest of the team and himself around him, then that's fine with me. but like Jesus Ferreira isn't necessarily known for being a really good presser of the ball. Haji Wright isn't necessarily known for being a great presser of the ball. So I don't know where that comes from. Again, if it's possible to just have the the prowess that we've had, the XG, like over the course of time, having more XG than your opponents, you should win more games. So it's kind of like this whole last 50 minutes rolled into one statement, which is I think we're doing well enough on the whole. It's just those little moments game by game that whether it's our youth or our immaturity or if our nines aren't confident, all of that kind of takes away from us actually scoring more.
I will say in the post-game press conference for last game, Greg Berhalter referred to Jesus Ferreira as a pressing animal. So that is something that's out there. Jake, we got a few minutes left before kickoff. I'm getting chat to kind of give us the predictions for the game. What are your thoughts? It looks like a lot of people are picking Uruguay for this one. What are your thoughts on how this one will play out?
I don't know. Before the lineups came out, I was probably thinking a 2-1 victory for Uruguay. That's if they had Cavani, Betancourt, Valverde, if they had them starting, but they don't. So I'm going to go for the other way, a 2-1 victory for the US, just based on the starting 11s, not necessarily based on the talents of the team overall, because this Uruguay team that's starting is not their best 11.
Yeah, I think the fan base continues to underestimate this squad, man. I think that we have a lot better team than people give it credit for. I think that we're still applying what we did in CONCACAF to what we're going to see in this World Cup. Whenever I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that teams that aren't going to hack Pulisic to death, that are going to come at us and are going to try to play actual soccer and playing on pitches that are really nice, world-class type pitches that we're going to see over in Qatar is going to contribute a lot better for this U.S. men's national team than what we saw in World Cup qualifying. So I think with the athletes this team has, with the ability to press, with the ability to create chances from forcing the opposition into mistakes, I think that we're going to be a lot closer in games than people give us credit for. So I think we can actually, let's say, I said 2-1 in the last game against Morocco. It ended up being 3-0. So I'll go 2-1 for this one as well.
Nice.
Now, before we close out, I always pick the U.S. I don't care, man. Before we close out, I want to let you guys know the Sit 76 store has opened, so you guys can finally get your hands on these Kings of CONCACAF shirts. Me and Jake are both rocking them right now. The store is only going to be open for 7 days. After that 7 days is up, you are not going to be able to get these shirts. It's going to be on to the next shirt, and I don't even know where the next drop is going to be or what the next shirt's going to be. So don't be sending me these emails. I didn't get a chance to get the shirt. Go get it right now, man. Go get it right now. Get like 5 and give them all out to your friends. The post-game show, we're going to be back for a post-game show, but it's going to be over on Jake's channel. Jake, can you tell us where people are going to be able to find that post-game show and what they can expect?
Sure. I just dropped it in the chat so everyone can go direct to that. But the channel it's called Soccer. Very similar to yours, Sam. I just love talking about soccer, especially as it pertains to the U.S. I am a UEFA licensed coach through the English Football Association. I currently live in London. I just love breaking down the games, the tactics, the styles, especially as it relates to the U.S. soccer teams in ways that everyone can understand. So we're going to be there post-game. We're going to be breaking down the big moments, and I'll be staying up past midnight just for you guys with work tomorrow so that we can get that done and you guys can have some post-match entertainment.
I'm curious if anybody's ever called you on the UEFA licensed coach. How do we know?
I had my first birther comment on my last, but yeah, I'll post my license certification on my Twitter and put it in my bio so nobody else can question it.
All right. Now, before we go, I just wanted to put this out there, guys, because it is my absolute favorite thing in the world right now. I got this gnome from ussoccer.com. It is absolutely ridiculous. I put it out there for people to name it, and I think my favorite name has been Kobe Gnomes. So this is going to be Kobe Gnomes back here, and he's predicting a U.S. men's national team win as well. I just wanted The U.S. Soccer Shop is absolutely ridiculous. Part of the reason why I wanted to start since '76 is because of the stuff that they had there is just so expensive and just so like, ugh. I didn't get the plush unicorn. Did you see the plush unicorn?
I did. I thought that was a wasted opportunity in your store announcement as well.
Just one more comment for the road. Epicid, I can never pronounce that. Casanova says Samuel coaches the crawfish. That's a reference to South Louisiana. I guess I coach crawfish. All right, boys, enjoy the game. Make sure that you're hydrated. Make sure that you're eating a nice pre-game meal or a during-game meal. You got the snacks ready to go. Bathroom breaks only at halftime. We'll see you on the other side on Jake's channel. Thank you guys so much for joining us. For Jake from It's Called Soccer, my name is Sam, and this is